Hey Jason, how you doing?
Doing great, John. I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for agreeing to meet one more time because I kind of want to document some of these modeling concepts that I have because I just see, like I said last time, I kind of wanted to compare and contrast Buddhism and Flowsess, and what I said before was I think they fit together, but they fit together in opposite ways, and so I want to try to see if I can articulate that. So what I see everybody doing is, and it's the natural way to approach things, is they go affect the cause, or I should say affect the cause, the way you're looking at it. So what people do is they look at a lot of behaviors and they say these are acceptable, these are unacceptable, or these are good behavior, these are bad behaviors. And then they say, well, what causes these behaviors? Like, what are the applications? And they start figuring out what did all these good people do and what didn't they do? What did all the bad people do? What didn't they do? And then they go to what I think is I call principles or context. They start realizing, 80% of the people whose parents read to them before they went to bed didn't become criminals. And so they, at this third level, they kind of try to figure out what's the principles they can go by that guide everything. And that's nice, but I always talk about the fourth level's the truth, the real cause of that. And so what I do is I start from the initial cause, I work my way up to all the effects. So the issue is when you start from the cause, and I start from the first cause, God. I wrote a book modeling God where I modeled the God is just the first cause. So if you model the first cause, then you can go all the way up from there. My thing is I can't cover every effect. I just cover these effects that lead to these situations from this context. Buddhism's got 2,600 years of history of covering all these effects. So when I look at something like flow sets, we can help people understand the truth and it relates to principles and context and they know what to do. But if they ask me some ideas, I don't really have a lot of ideas. Whereas when something like Buddhism comes around, you have a list of all these different things people can try.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. But there's a surprise, and we're gonna have so much fun talking deeper because there's a whole you're totally right about the traditional Buddhism, what can be called exoteric Buddhism. But there's a whole nother section which is really funny because it's these like what's the word, like outcasts almost. They actually
Oh,
literally call it. So these are people. Sometimes they start off in the monastery, and in India they have these giant monastery universities. In fact, the oldest recorded university in the world is called Nalanda. It was a Buddhist university from like I think 200 AD. It was literally like a Harvard. It was like a city, and there were monks and yogis, and they were teaching law and architecture, but the main topic was Buddhism. And so and they had like each, the north, south, east, west direction, each had, like the greatest scholars. So there were four great scholars. And so there's these stories of this guy named Naropa, and he was like the top scholar. And yet he's like, I still don't feel, because he was doing like what you call the effects to the cause. And he's studying all the teachings, and he's like unhappy. And everyone's praising him, but he's like, I don't feel like a Buddha. And then he goes out, and some old woman who's like really a master disguised as a woman says, "You don't have realization." And he's like, "How did you know that?" And then like she's like, My brother has the realization." And then she like disappears, and then she appears, and he has to leave the monastery, leave all of this studying behind, and meet this teacher who can point out what you're calling the cause, which in Buddhism they don't call it God, but they have many, many words which really fit your definition of God. So it's like, again, but then once you have that realization, like of God, like you said, then all of the other stuff becomes application. So it goes from like, this is what I have to do to get here. Then you're like, oh, I can just go right here. But it doesn't diminish all these. It just becomes now application of it.
so what's that called?
So it's called, well, sometimes they call it the resultant vehicle, which is funny because you're calling effect a cause, but they're looking at it from the point of view of practice. So it's completely in harmony with what you're saying. But it's called the Great Seal, Mahamudra.
What's this version? Is this another version of Buddhism? What is this? What would you
Well,
call this?
this is what I'm saying. There's some people who say this is not Buddhism. This is made up Buddhism. But in Tibet and in India before that, this was considered like the highest form. But you didn't want to study that until you studied the exoteric. So it's kind of like you do that, what you're calling like the applications. Originally, you're doing it, you're studying, you're debating, you're sharpening your mind so you could understand two main things: emptiness. So you're not clinging to anything, even your own ideas. Even saying everything is empty, is impermanent, is still an idea that you're clinging to. So you have to even let go of even that idea. That's number one. And number two is bodhicitta, which is the concept of if I benefit myself, like I will benefit myself so I can be more beneficial to others. And if
Okay.
I am more beneficial to others, I will become better. Like in the art, the skillful art of trying to be empathetic and as useful and helpful as possible. And helpful could actually be sometimes scolding someone, like the teachers. I've told you my stories about the like what Milarepa had to go through. But so that idea that helping others is helping me is helping others is called bodhicitta. So what we say in our traditionally is like you don't want to go to the what you're calling the cause to effect. You don't want to until you've understood deeply the emptiness and the bodhicitta.
So do
So
we want to call that esoteric
we
then?
call it esoteric. Yeah, that's probably the best.
I'm saying you and I, like, I want to be able to refer to this because I want to hear a lot
Yeah,
more
there's a
about
lot.
this. I
This is
mean, we should definitely be talking more about this. And I
yes,
call the bodhicitta, I
bodhicitta.
would say is living a life of flow. I say learn something
Mm,
today that you can use to help somebody with, which gives you energy to learn something
yes.
tomorrow that you could help. So that's awesome. So that's
Like funny, like
okay.
your whole work that you're doing. It's like it's everything. That's why I love all your stuff because it's like I've been studying this tradition, and there's so many different schools and teacher masters. I've studied so many of them, so I love to get their different perspective, but it's still pretty much the same. Then I read your stuff, and you're basically explaining the same stuff from a completely different context. So it was so refreshing, and also
So when
deepened my
did you
understanding.
study the esoteric stuff? When did you learn that stuff?
Okay, so sort of, it's kind of like a mishmash, like most Westerners. They come into the Tibetan Buddhism in this esoteric because like this is the highest teachings and you'll see these deities like with all these different colors and heads. So it's very attractive, but even all of those deities are not actual deities. They're mnemonic devices to teach us
Okay.
something. So they're just symbols. They're just archetypal symbols to represent things that are beyond words. But even the symbols, even the deities, you got to go beyond all of that to get to the original cause, right? So I was studying it inside and out. When I met Geshe-la,
Well, you were studying this before Geshe-la.
yes, but on my own and like just reading
Okay.
books, dabbling in it. When I met Geshe-la and he showed me what we call it the causal vehicle, right?
Uh-huh.
The exoteric. I realized there's this whole thing that I've been craving my whole life because I've been studying astrology. I was studying all this magical stuff from the West, from Hinduism, from Buddhism, chakras, all that kind of stuff. And it was all, but it just seemed ungrounded when I found the debate stuff. When I found these five topics, I kind of put aside the esoteric stuff for a bunch of years for about 7 years, 8 years. I was studying it a little bit, but from a scholarly point of view, I wasn't really living it. I was living like a monk, like as strict as possible. And then I started to loosen up. It was like after I became a lama, that's when I started to loosen up. But again, just because I knew the original cause, it doesn't mean I still read that debate book, even though like the lower stuff, because again, now it becomes application and it becomes ways to relate to others better. Because if you're
Okay.
up here and you don't have that stuff, you can't relate to people. So all of these books you can say if you really want to be the best version of yourself and help the most beings possible, you have to be able to relate to every being possible, you know? So, so the more
We
you,
got it. We're gonna have to talk about this definitely. We're gonna have to talk about this. So I could go really deep. Okay, so here's the three things I wanted to contrast. That well, I didn't expect that. That was great. So the first thing that always hits me is mind.
Hmm.
Buddhists use the word mind, and they tend to mean mind and brain together. However, what you taught me is it's really moment of mind. I call the mind or the soul who you are, and you work through a brain. I keep hearing Buddhists say conscious mind and unconscious mind like it's all one thing. So to me, that's what I did was I feel like the mind is the uniqueness, and then the brain is where everything happens. But now you explained that it's really moment of mind.
Yeah,
So
now,
what I'm trying to say is I agree with what you say. I don't agree with how Buddhists use the word mind.
mhm.
Most Buddhists use it because
Right.
I think that's why they're missing out on understanding the uniqueness and everything.
Absolutely. Most Buddhists they've never read that debate, the epistemological stuff, so they don't understand that everything means moment of mind. Like, and this is really, again, yeah, this is a really exciting part. Um, so yeah, like okay, so and also there's three words for mind in Sanskrit, so it's even more complicated than that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's like chitta, with like bodhicitta,
Right.
and this has the connotation of like the mind in the sense of where you accumulate all of your memories and everything.
Okay. See, I would call that brain.
Okay, but it's still yeah, it's slightly different. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
more like what flows through the brain. But yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Then you have something called mentation, which is like your your senses are picking up things, right? And again, everything is moment. And we say a snap of a finger. You said a billionth, a billion
Yeah.
moments of mind per second. I like that, but let's just say 360, 700, whatever, like moments of mind per snap of a finger, let's say, right? That's kind of what there's like a little debate, right? What they say. But um so every time my eye sees something, it goes in and it's just sensory data. The next moment, a moment of mentation happens, which is when it takes in that data and forms a moment of mind.
And I like this.
And
I
then there,
like this
and then
because the
there's
mind is what's running the brain. So what I just heard you say is information comes into the brain and something has to get involved.
right, right.
I like that.
But it gets involved, but we say it's preconceptual. So there's no thinking involved. This is just the billionth of a second next. It's literally the next moment, they say.
I like it. I like this.
And then there's consciousness as a third definition,
Okay.
and this is called vijnana, and that is the senses. So there's eye consciousness, ear consciousness, up to mind consciousness. So that's the subject object aspect of mind. So that was just a
See, that's where that third one is, I think, where like consciousness, I think mind soul is consciousness
mhm.
above what the brain is. Without the mind and soul, the brain doesn't have consciousness. And that third one sounds like they again they blended eye consciousness, consciousness through the eye through this. I like the second one.
But we're
We're
gonna
gonna have to talk about we
definitely.
gotta absolutely talk about that second
But
one.
what I want to share though is how I see Flowsess and the Buddha Dharma, the causal vehicle, fitting together so nicely. Is like you said, it's a moment of mind. So in the moment of mind, there's five mental factors. We call them the omnipresent mental factors. So I showed you that thick book on the psychology, the Abhidharma, talks about 51 mental factors. So a moment of mind, you could think of it as like a circle. In that circle, there's always five mental factors that are always, every single moment always has these five. These five are contact, meaning like there's like an eye is seeing the object. So there's like the actual, however that happens, whether it's reflecting into the retina, there's different theories. But the contact,
I would
there's,
call that stimulus, but keep
okay, yeah,
going.
there's feeling. So every single stimulus, every single data we receive, there's an unconscious, pre-conscious sensation. Is this pleasurable? Is this painful? Or is this neutral? And
And I say in the brain that's attached to an emotion. This is good. Go on.
then there's perception, which is not conception.
Right.
It's this is like you're looking at like a red pen in front of a background. Your eye is on a instantly seeing this is a separate object from the background. That's perception. Then there's what you
That's
can call,
analysis, but
then
go
there's
on.
volition. Again, these are English translations of Sanskrit words.
Ooh,
Volition is like every moment, like the eye is either moving to something or staying. It's either gonna. It's like the thing that moves the senses towards their object is called the volition, and then finally there's the attention. So this is what. So again, this is billions of frames per second. But I look at something and I want to stay focused on that thing for more than a billion, more for like 10 seconds. I'm focusing on something. That's attention. So this is like what makes the moments of mind continue.
I would love to talk that through like step by step, because that last one to me is the nucleus basalis or focus, and that
Mm,
fourth one
so
is the
interesting.
mind. Volition is who you are. Like I would, what I love about it is what you're saying is in systems terms, is every moment of mine is a system made up of five parts.
Well, yeah, yes. I want to just go deeper. It's at least five parts because
Oh, at
remember,
least five parts.
there's
Nice.
51 mental factors.
Okay.
So you're always going to have those five, but then you could have an
Oh, I
addition.
agree with that. That's the structure of, yeah, oh man, we
So,
could
so,
talk
so,
about how the
so
eye
I
really
didn't even
feeds
mean to go
everything.
into that, but
No, I
so
love it. I
you get
love it.
five, you could have other ones. And it's really cool. It gets into real specifics. Like in each moment, like this 700 per second, hate and love cannot exist at the same time.
No, I
In one
love it.
moment of mind.
I love it.
So if you have a lot of hate, you can practice meditation. And there's six different words for meditation. One of them is called cultivation, should be, and so you cultivate love, it automatically removes the hate from you. But the reason why I bring all that up
Well,
is
see, what I
because
like about that, just real quick, is
yeah,
you can't stop hating. You can't do a don't. You got to do something. So if you
exactly.
love, you can't hate. I love that. I love that.
So the reason why I bring that up is because Buddha is giving, I like to describe the Buddha's teaching as an instruction manual for your, I guess your mind brain, you would call it. Like, but I like to say your subjective experience. Everything in Buddhism is is all taking place in that moment of mind. These thousands of books, hundreds of thousands of books with all these different realms, all comes down to the present moment of mind. It's a handbook of how your mind works. So what I'm saying is it's like a one size fits all manual because on that level, everyone has the same hardware and software. It's the same 51 factors. But what Flowcess does is it's almost like another layer of consciousness, a little bit more manifest level of consciousness, um, where the uniqueness comes in.
I was
That's
going to say, I mean
fascinating part.
that's right where I was going to say my next point. So that's perfect. So you're right, because brain wise, our brains all work the same. They work the same. Now, everybody's brain is different in how it's been set up, but the steps, like you said, are all there. But the uniqueness is the thing. And so that's the thing, is that one of the big differences is with flow sets with these intangible drivers, it's a positive diagnosis. Like, so when I met you, you tested out as teacher server or server teacher. And I've said this before. I was like, I I wanted to coach you either way, but I really wanted you to be server teacher because, my closest friends, my previous mentor was a server teacher from India. And and I get, I'm an administrative teacher. So server administrator is one away. So there's very little tension between you and I. And we both meet a teacher. And it's just easy to talk to you. It's easy to get along. And plus, you are so much smarter than me. The server. So that's the thing, is if you really look at understanding server teacher, and if somebody were to to watch all this stuff, they would see it right away. Like, you'd love to teach. You said that. And the server teacher will teach everything seven ways.
Mm.
And so what I say about the server Y is we're all sitting in a circle looking at a problem. I'm sitting in an administrator chair. I see it like an administrator. Someone sits in compassion, sees a compassion. The server Y gets up, walks all the way around it, sees all seven, sits down, and thinks everybody else is doing that. So when everybody, like when I talk from one perspective and you talk from seven, you naturally think, are you stupid? Don't you see these other seven? And when it comes to arguing with you have seven reasons for everything. So when I argue with a server Y and I convince him of one reason, when I convince him, he doesn't agree with me because it's like I still have six more reasons. I usually say I have to get it down to 4-3.
Mm.
I have to win every argument four times with the server Y before they agree, which is fine. It helps me, do that. But server Ys are naturally smarter. And then if they're a genius like you and they're server Y, it's like I get it. Your whole story makes sense that you're a very smart server teacher because server teachers are like the best problem solvers in the world. And server teachers have a lot of internal tension.
Mm.
So they're not afraid, like hitchhiking up and down South America and taking off it's just so obvious. So that's the thing is when I understand somebody's intangible drivers, I'm getting a really quick view into who's driving that brain or driving that car. And then it completely makes sense why you became the fiber king. Like you picked something up and you just absorbed it, or you pick up Buddhism and
Mm.
you just absorbed it. I got to say this, administrator teacher, every time you explained to master, they sounded like an administrator teacher to me. And it's amazing. Morpheus is an administrator teacher. So you mentioned that. And the thing about administrator teachers is they're looking to get the truth and develop somebody else.
Mm.
That's their focus is develop somebody else. Their focus is not to get the attention, and their focus is to make the world better, not to become rich. They don't care if they become rich. They care that they're the best at what they do, and they care that they're helping people the best possible. And all the previous
Definitely.
three people, Jim Geshela and Dr. Lou, all sound like people who, if they really wanted to be rich, they could be rich, but they're smart enough to go, I'm happy developing other people.
And is that, are they particularly good at working with server teachers, do you think?
Oh, I think that would be like their favorite student
Okay, because
because they're the server teacher is very smart and they meet and teacher and they want to be taught. And the administrative teacher has a hard time growing up in life as a kid because they look like a know-it-all. They teach everybody, and then everybody, um, just gets tired of them. It's funny because Jim, I still go back to Jim said, each of us has a purpose and it is good. Our intangible drivers are good. So a lot of people shy away from being told they're a server teacher, administrative teacher,
Mhm.
because in psychology, whenever you get a diagnosis, it's always bad. No one ever says you got awesome man syndrome. You're really smart. You're really nice. That never happens in psychology, but an intangible driver is a positive diagnosis. You could use it wrong, but it's positive. And then what I learned from you is that you are kind of adding that to Buddhism as the hub of your wheel.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like you say a positive diagnosis, it's like it goes back to what I think of as bliss. It's like if you know who you are, who you were made to be by God, or however you want to call it, like if you're gonna feel the best doing it, and that's what the whole universe is depending on you being. So
Right.
it's yeah, I've always felt that, and yeah, you explain it.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that so that kind of leads to my third point is that when we talk about no self
Hmm.
um in Buddhism, what I see that as is no brain in a sense because we are ourself. And the only thing that's going to limit us from being more ourself is suffering, preconceived notions, illogical things to try to get ahead of other people. And if you really got rid of all of that, we would, in our natural state, just be ourselves. And that's what happens with kids. Kids, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're just naturally themselves. They naturally flow unless they've had trauma, and they're naturally themselves. It's as we go through synaptic pruning, as we go through other stuff, our brain just gets tough to let ourselves come out through. And so when I hear a Buddhist talk and when I hear you talk about no self, in my head, I go, no hindrances from the brain. That's what I actually hear.
You really got me thinking this time that maybe all of that, those 51 factors, it's all brain. I never would have thought of it that way, but yeah, you really got me thinking that.
Yeah, so because there's the thing is there's so many things that I want to talk about, like causality and definitions and debating and in fact, well, let's talk about debating because I'll go through the things that I compare. I loved when you said you can debate everything. I think we ought to be able to debate everything. I have a process from debating that's from, I believe, cause effect. You have learned, I believe, a process from effect to cause. So I don't know if you realize this, but our third meeting, you and I debated.
Okay. Like on
Okay.
one of these calls?
Yes, it's recorded. You can go back and look at it. In fact, the third time I watched it, I recognized that the first two times I watched it, I didn't recognize that you and I debated.
Hmm.
And it's so quick. I've told people we're not debating with sledgehammers. We're debating with scalpels. It's like, and it's done. And if you watch it, and it's natural. I didn't know we were debating. You didn't know we were debating, but it was about halfway through that meeting when we were talking about the meaning of life and gurus and marriage.
Hmm.
And you had made this statement about um marriage kind of being this thing that was the better situation, Western, if you will.
Or like yeah, in the West, like the meeting of like the anima and the animus, the male and the female, is like the ultimate of all the movies and the Bible. It's very emphasized. Yeah.
And I just quickly went, to me, marriage is always seen as an end. You can't
Hmm.
explain happily ever after. In the Eastern, it would be higher because that could be continual. And then you very quickly went, well, the East has a lot to benefit from what you wrote down about marriage and God's
Right,
plan,
right.
da 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 da. And it was it. And I'm gonna probably clip that and use it to teach people what like two expert debaters look like. Because the thing is that I'm not debating to be right and someone else to be wrong.
No, that's
I'm debating to bring out the truth. I think everything you've said is you're trying to bring out the truth. And
Mhm.
so all I can do is state what I believe, make sure it's heard and understood, and then hear and understand the other side and be able to repeat it back to them.
Mhm.
And what happened, what it looked like happened is I felt heard and understood. You felt heard and understood. And we didn't need to say well, I guess we have a difference of opinion. Let's move on. We both went, oh, okay. And we moved on. But that's where like, you believe this. I believe that. I understand you. I don't need to convince you of anything. I learned something,
Mhm.
and that's all that needs to be done versus this debating to be able to go, I won.
Oh yeah.
I was right. It's really insecure and really unprofitable.
Mm.
So I just thought it was interesting that you and I naturally
How did
debated.
how did we how did we debate? You're saying that you had a different view. Like
Yeah,
I was saying that in the East, even today when you watch a movie, like the guy finding the guru and then mastering himself is like the student teacher relationship is like the highest relationship, whereas in the West it's like the husband, like
marriage.
the male and female. So
Yeah.
you're saying that you.
I said it's interesting because to me, we don't have an explanation of what it looks like after marriage.
Oh,
We
I
go
see.
happily ever after. And to me, it's not as big as this person kind of, it's the hero's journey really is they've mastered themselves and now they're able to do all these great journeys. I can imagine how that person would go on to do all these great journeys. But
Mhm.
then you brought it back to, you know, God's plan is church and marriage or fellowship and marriage or community and marriage type of thing. And there is more to marriage than what we see. To me, I think what you got me on was I'm saying marriage in movies and the Western tradition versus in reality, marriage is I think you're right that marriage in reality is a bigger
Oh, so
example than
you're
the
saying,
gurus, but I'm saying, but in the West, in their movies, it stops short.
and it's different in practice in the West, you're saying,
Oh,
or
it's definitely different in practice. That's another thing too. I mean, again, this is another thing we
gotcha,
should definitely
gotcha.
talk about because how marriage the right way is the I believe one of the keys to happiness and joy,
Sure.
but it's not how it's practiced at all. That'll be another we could go way deep on that. But again, it it's just funny. We're just talking and we disagree and we just it happens so quick
Okay, I gotta
that
rewatch
you're
that.
not looking for it, you won't see it. But it's like if people want to say you're argumentative or I'm argumentative, I would just take that clip and say, does that look like an argument? Because that's how I like to argue. And if other people were as smart as Jason, all my arguments would end the same way, is what I would say. So, anyways, so one of the things I'm a systems thinker, and I really we already talked about Buddhism is saying this is a system. I just love the Eastern philosophy is synthesis systems thinking. It is what's everything's a system, it's all connected, and then we look at parts versus the West wants to just take everything apart
Right.
and pull it apart. And it's like the West thinks that knowing everything is the same as doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus we've talked a lot about it's not enough to know it, you got to do it. Like with the Fiber King, these doctors know all this fiber stuff. Are they eating that way? Do they
Nope.
know how to eat that way?
Nope.
So to me, that's like a big thing is it's not enough to just say it or say you know it. It's do it. And I see that as a Eastern thing, not a Western thing.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like owning a book. You tell people like, "There's a book. Oh yeah, I have that book. Have you read it?" No, it's like it does nothing. You could just get it from the library. If you read it, you could return it, and you still have experienced it. You've done it. You know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of books out there. This book right here, Flow. This guy just it's a best-selling book. He talks about all the effects of flow. I wrote him twice saying, here's how you actually flow. And the thing is he didn't want to know that. And in his book on page 201, he says, if we understood these things, we could help everybody flow. But in reality, he never wanted to help everybody flow. He
Hmm.
just thought that stating the effects of flow were the same as actually doing it.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
so, and you see that a lot with
I see that
religion, you see it with
everything.
Christianity, for instance.
So deep into my Buddhist studies, I'm already a Lama. This is 15 years into studying, and I just was listening to podcasts and I came across this rabbi who was talking about business and the Bible. And it just got me, this is fascinating stuff because, again, I'm very content. I'm not looking for religion because I understand I'm seeing the results. I have faith that if I continue on this path, I will, I'm going to get higher and higher bliss and freedom. And um, but I like I said with the bodhicitta, I am in America. I have to master, business, to fulfill my purpose. So I started reading the Bible, like the Old Testament, the first five books of the Old Testament, and then a few books after that. And I read the New Testament. I'm like, and the four Gospels, and I was really blown away. Like again, it gave me a different perspective. And I'm like, let me go to some churches. And I went to a whole bunch of churches and talked to rabbis. And it just felt like we just said, like nobody was getting it. Nobody, And so meeting you and then reading Modeling God, like I realized this to me was the original Christianity. And you are like the apostle. Like, you were taking the teaching, spreading it and then teaching people who then spread it further.
Yeah, the thing is that with modeling God, what upset all these pastors was I objectively showed that what the gospel said
Hmm.
was that you should take direction from God,
Hmm.
do what God's telling you to do, confess and repent when you don't, you should admit you're wrong, you should have a good attitude even when things are terrible, and you should forgive.
Mm,
And
right.
these
Well,
pastors, their measure was how much money they had, how big their church had. They're like,
right.
I'm
How
winning at
much?
life. That's the scoreboard. And then I'm like, well, are you doing what God's telling you to do? Do you admit you're wrong? Do you confess and repent?
Right,
Do you
right,
have a
right.
good attitude
Well,
when things go
that was
bad?
it. That was actually the point I wanted to make was that, I'm reading the New Testament. This is amazing. This is like Buddhism. Because to me, everything from Buddhism is never meant to just be like, I know this scripture, and it's literally like only purpose is to put it into practice. There's nothing holy about the book. There's nothing even holy about the words. It's the mind of God, the mind of Buddha. So when I read your stuff, I was like, finally, someone who actually, like, this is how I interpreted it. And then I go to churches and I talk to people and nobody's living it. So yeah, thank you. That
Yeah,
was,
they know it. Oh, I know I should forgive, but did you hear what he did to me? It's so to me, yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
it really is about like, yeah, it's like two things what I found. It's like, believe in Jesus, you go to heaven after you die, but while you're alive, we're going to get new cars and we're going to, like pray to Jesus and God helped us here. Look at that's why our church is growing because.
Yeah, that's what it is. And in reality, that's not what it was supposed to be at all. It's not there. That's that's ridiculous. Well, that's the problem is that's my final point here that I have written down is people think that money makes them happy. And I go into these schools and I'll ask these kids, if you had a magic wand, what would you want? And their answer is to be famous or to be rich.
Mhm.
And I ask them, do you want to be famous? Because I'll be rich. So the
Right.
answer is to be
Yeah.
rich.
Yep.
So I say, why do you want to be rich? Well, so I can buy this. Why? So I can do this. Why? So I'll be happy. And then I go, why not just be happy?
Right.
And so that's the big issue is that people think that this money is going to make them happy, and so they're focused on that. When in reality, there is a way to be happy. There's
Hmm.
things you can do, and the effect is happiness. So I always talk about flow and improv and basically responding to every situation by being more yourself,
Mm.
and that builds your self-esteem. You talked about turning every situation into bliss. Same thing.
Really, I was just going to say it's exactly the same thing. When you were saying that, that's exactly what I do with people, when I'm
I think
working.
you do it beyond. I'm talking about
Oh, yeah.
like a momentary situation. You're talking about like almost transcendent
Right,
doing
but
this
it's the same
beyond.
thing though. It's absolutely the
Yeah,
same thing. It's like money, again, we're talking about the four elements with so money, like the earth element, money correlates to the earth element, which is peace of mind, security, right? Like the
right.
Maslow's hierarchy, right? So yeah, you can give someone money, you can give people money and it could make them feel more secure, but it doesn't mean they're gonna love you for it, like
Right.
so. But if you mix it with the water element, if you give with love, now you're bringing together the two elements, and and like yeah, so like the money is not the end. It's like you want to have all four elements is my point.
Mhm.
Like when you put
Right.
all four elements into everything you do, then yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I think it's just interesting. I think you're doing something that is beyond all of that.
Mhm.
And there's so many different topics here because um you talk about you had this quote to avoid all evil, to cultivate good, and to purify one's mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. And there's a nice three-step process there. You also talked about the main teachings were karma, focus, impermanence. And I look at that as be good, focus, and grow through change. I mean, who can disagree with we ought to all be good, we ought
Mhm.
to focus, and we
Right,
ought to grow? The
right.
thing is, for instance, the way I would explain it is the reason why you be good. I feel like Buddhism goes, well, the reason why you should be good is you might end up coming back as a cockroach or something. And that's fine. The thing is that they're just trying to help this person be good. What I know from the unconscious brain, and this is why I talk about justice and karma, is whatever you do, that 90% of your brain does to you immediately. So there is a real physical karma happening, let
Mhm.
alone from the universe.
Right.
But when you don't trust somebody, your unconscious doesn't trust you. When you give to somebody, your unconscious gives to you. So there is a
No, we have
real
what
thing
you said
happening.
about Buddhism is the way people who don't understand Buddhism usually explain it. There's
Right.
four results of everything. Every karma, there's actually four results. One of them is exactly what you said. Another one is that if you do something like stealing, you're going to more likely steal again in the future. So now you're creating more of the habituation. But
Habituation, you just said it.
yeah,
You beat me to it.
what you just explained is exactly explained in Buddhism. It says that if you do good things, you're going to have a clear conscience. Clear conscience. If you
Uh-huh.
have a clear conscience, you're going to be able to focus. And if you're able
Oh,
to
I like this.
focus, then you'll be able to have discernment. So it's like discipline, focus, discernment. So in that
Wisdom.
order.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like so in other words, all we're trying to do is it's just moments of mind. We're trying to master those moments of mind. So if you're like stealing, you're like, oh, am I going to get caught? And like you said, the unconscious is also working against you now. It's totally like again 100% spot on with what you're saying. Then but if you're doing a lot of you're giving, you're feeling really good, you're happy from doing good things because we all know like unless you're a narcissist, right? Like when you do good things, it feels good. Then your conscience is clear. Then you're gonna when you try to focus, you're gonna be able to focus much better. And then when you're able to focus, it's like focus means slowing down the frames of the movie.
Right.
So once you're able to do that, now you want to contemplate something like impermanence or God. Now you can do that. So it's a three-step process. That's why we call it the three baskets, um, or the three higher trainings. The training in discipline, which is do good, the training in mind, which is focus, and then the training in wisdom, which is the discernment part, which is studying.
I would really like to go through that. There's so many things here that I would love for you to just like teach, and then I'd like to teach, like almost like doing a podcast, because
Absolutely.
like this arising thing to me, I
Oh,
feel like we could do like two or three videos on it. I've tried to explain it to some people, and they say to me, you know, do I need to take mushrooms or are you taking mushrooms in order to understand this? But I think that they're like this billionth of a second thing. I think that there's this idea that everything is off or on for a moment much quicker than we can see.
exactly.
And so things do arise. So and then it implies we live in a matrix. But that would be like I mean,
Have you ever heard of dimethyltryptamine,
yeah,
DMT?
yeah,
So our bodies release it when we're born, when we die, you know. But here's the interesting thing about it. We always produce it, but we produce an enzyme which breaks it down all the time.
right,
It's in grass, it's in everything, but we're constantly breaking it down. So when you do a drug, when you take ayahuasca or these DMT things, what you're really taking is an enzyme inhibitor which prevents it. So in other words, the DMT, seeing things the arising, is actually our natural state. That's what
right.
that's how a Buddha sees.
Right. And I talk about this like I went on the Nephilim Death Squad and said this the first time I was on. I don't know if you ever saw that one, but I said on there that you have basically a program running in your brain that's in touch with the spiritual realm. But this program is running so strong,
Right.
you can't see
Yeah.
that one. And all these hallucinogens weaken this program so that you get to your natural state, is
And the
what you're
problem
talking
is
about.
taking these substances. This is what's so funny about it. They're worshiping this vine as if the vine is giving them the visions, but there's no vision in the vine. The vine is just simply knocking out the enzyme, so you can see what.
Which isn't that a Buddhist thing though?
Yeah, 100%.
Get rid of the thing in your
Yeah,
brain that's hindering you.
yeah, that's it. That's the Buddha nature. Is that in this billionth of a second, every single moment. This is the key thing. Every single moment, you can catch that we call it the Dharma Dhatu, the element of reality. You can catch that every single moment. That's in that moment of mind. That's always there. It precedes it. But then, like you said, the brain, like it instantly covers it. Like all of these preconceived notions instantly fill up that this quiet, the quiet voice, the quiet bliss. And then and the more you seek external forms of bliss, the less you catch it.
Right, you habituate that way. That's man. So what do you think? What do you like? What do you think about doing a
Let's
podcast? Like,
do it,
can't you
man. Of
see like the
course.
first part you can teach, all this stuff, and then I would like to just explain what's going on in the brain. Like, so you'd still be the Eastern guy, I'd still be the
No,
Western
this would be, I
guy.
think it's amazing. Let's
Oh,
absolutely do it, man.
I would love to do this. Thank you so much. I would love to do this because
Thank you.
this is I actually want to go through a bunch of these topics we just covered and just get into them, like
Yeah.
spend an hour on each one
There's
and teach it to other
countless
people.
topics. I mean, I've been wanting to talk about this for so long, you know. So it's
Awesome.
perfect. Yeah, it's great to have you interpret everything with the brain and everything.
Well, again, and you're giving me a different perspective. It is wild to hear another way to look at the same thing
Mhm.
and to, like I said, realize that, Buddhism is saying get the blocks out of your brain, the things blocking you, and then all the stuff will happen naturally. And it's proven with science. It's
Mhm.
actually the right answer. So let's do it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you
I'm
so
looking
much.
forward to this. Let's get together and start planning this out.
Definitely. See you soon.
Thanks. Okay.